there, my little gappers, and welcome to 1% Better with Heather. Today in the studio, I have a very special guest, Libby. Hello, Libby.
Hello, Heather. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thank you for being here. Well, virtually here. Not really here.
Yeah.
It feels like you are. So let's just jump right in and get you to introduce yourself to the people.
Awesome. So again, thank you for having me. I'm Libby Supan, and I'm a food and body specialist. So I'm a licensed therapist who specializes in eating disorders. I'm a certified intuitive eating counselor. I have a therapy practice and a coaching practice. And the whole reason why I do any of this is because I myself recovered from an eating disorder, disordered eating I had for about 20 years, truly thinking I was not going to make it. So I really believe that if somebody like me can get better, 99% of the people can also get better. Like, I have full hope, and that's who I am.
That, so let's talk about that, if you don't mind, going back in
Yeah.
time. When did your eating disorder start? Do you know what were the pinpoint was?
Yeah. So the way I always explain the development of eating disorders is it's kind of this like, I think of it like a cake recipe, right? So there's all these different types of eating disorders. There's all different types of cake. And in each one different type of cake, strawberry, vanilla, chocolate, whatever, you have a little bit different ingredients. So I already had some ingredients going on. Um, and, so like there was physical abuse, there was perfectionism, diet culture in my household. I was into dancing, so constantly staring at myself in mirrors, comparing my body to others. So that was already going on. Um, and then what happened was at the time a very like traumatic thing for me. It was the summer before my freshman year in high school. As a family, we moved to a different location in California, which again was like very traumatic for me at the time. And I was miserable when I moved. I hated everything about it. I did not have any friends. And I was just desperate to feel different and better. And it's hard to really remember my thinking back then because it was so long ago. But yeah, I just started restricting food. And I think it started pretty slowly, like it does for most people. I think I started eating a little bit less breakfast and then a little bit less lunch. And I would get, started to get kind of scared and freaked out to go out to eat when we did that as a family. So yeah, it started like the behavior started freshman year of high school and it just took off.
So sorry, I have to ask this question because I'm Canadian. We don't use those
Yeah.
terms. What's a freshman? Like what grade would
Oh, I
that
was
be?
like, what term? Freshman, like first year of high school.
Grade 8, grade 9?
Oh, that would be grade 9.
Grade 9. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, ninth grade.
So like 14, in around 14 years. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably.
Oh man. And I understand the whole being in the dance background and looking at you know,
Did you dance
I
too?
figure skated.
Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, awesome.
Yeah. Kids,
Yeah,
kids.
yeah,
So, yeah, but my sister was gymnastics. So
yep.
and our neighbors owned a dance studio. They
Okay.
had, but I hear a lot from dancers, like you're constantly looking at a mirror. And that's got to be hard,
Yeah,
right? In comparing. And some people have great stories that nothing happened in their dance studio, and some
right.
don't,
Yeah.
right? But it's like
Yeah,
anything, I guess. Too, right?
totally. And what I want to say, to be fair, at least as far as I can remember, there wasn't much talk about like food or body stuff at that age. It was really just me observing kind of how people were treated due to their body size. So like for instance, this one dancer was bigger than the rest of us and she was by far the best, but always put in the back. So that was like a very clear message to me.
And
Kind of like whatever you do, you don't gain weight.
that, God, I feel bad for that girl because I know, like, I'm 5'10", so I was always in the back because I would block like
Yeah.
the 50. Right. Also, why
Mm-hmm.
my figure skating career didn't go far because I'm 5'10".
Right.
So,
Maybe you should have been a dancer.
right, long way down. Let me tell you. So, but so you moved. That's got to be hard. Like right when you're
It
trying
was
to find
really
yourself
hard.
to right puberty and everything else. and then have to
Totally.
make friends at 14.
Yeah, and I think the thing that like made it so very traumatic was I moved to a place that was like it almost felt like I lived in opposite land. Like everything was opposite from what I knew. The things that used to be cool and popular were no longer. So like getting good grades was super dumb. Like it was just kind of, oh, you're such a dork, you get good grades. Being a cheerleader was super dorky. Like how I dressed was not how they dressed, like even makeup stuff, like all those things that are so important at that age, you know? And you just want to belong,
So you really went to a new planet, is really what happened to you.
is what it felt like,
Living in
for
the
sure.
upside down, right? Oh my God, that's
Yeah.
gotta suck. And it's not
Yeah,
like you
it's
moved to a
totally
different
sucked.
country, right? Like that I would
Right.
understand. Like you're moving,
Yeah.
I don't know, from East Coast, West Coast, whatever you did, right?
Yeah.
That, oh, that's frustrating.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it was really hard for that time at that age. And I also, like, you know, grew up in a household where we didn't talk about things ever. We didn't do feelings. It was either like screaming, crying, or silence. And so I didn't talk about anything. And I didn't have any friends, so I really just like had my diary and that was about it. And yeah, it was pretty isolating.
Isolating, lonely. So I can
Yeah,
understand how you get disease, right?
for
Like it's
sure.
so
Yeah.
there's your recipe. Exactly. Right?
Yeah. And the interesting thing, because you know, eating disorders, it's all about food and it has nothing to do with food. Once, so sophomore year, so grade 10, once I started making some friends, it just kind of like normalized and kind of dissipated a little bit. I mean, it was all kind of diet culture was like always there for sure. I was always trying to lose weight, but not as much as I was my first year in high school. But it blew through the roof when I moved away and went to college. That's when it just got out of control and it turned into binge eating. And that's when it felt really scary. And that's when I knew I had a problem.
So if you don't mind me asking, was it binging purging or just like binging?
So I purged, but not in the traditional sense. I couldn't do it. Like my body wouldn't let me. So I purged in the sense of like over exercising, diet pills, laxatives, like anything you could imagine. The over exercise was the biggest one. It was like that's how I planned my whole life and my days and the classes I registered for. And, you know, I was always at cheerleading practice and dance practice. And I was going rollerblading and I was going to the gym and I was going running at 4 in the morning. And I mean, it was just nuts.
That that is a hamster wheel of hell, right?
Hmm.
Like holy
Yeah.
cow.
Yeah. And I've had so many physical ailments because of it. I've had like surgeries on my feet. And yeah, it was just like thinking back to those days. I mean, those years, it was so long. It's just insanity. Like, I just imagine like visualizing myself kind of going about the world and just, she was crazy. Like, she was out of control. You know, she was living in just chaos and so scared.
Yeah, living in a hurricane, right? You don't see the
Yeah,
hurricane till it spits you out. But when you're living
right.
in the hurricane, everything's normal, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So you go to college, I guess away from your family, right?
yeah,
So, and I've heard this a lot from parents whose kids go to college. That's normally where everything hits skids, especially if you already
yeah,
had an eating disorder. It's just like game on.
for
And
sure.
I don't know if it's because of the pressure. I don't know if it's because a lot of people are in with scholarships, or it's just
Hmm.
like, ha, no one's watching me. I can go back and be with my eating disorder
Yeah,
in the land of hell, but
yeah,
normalcy for you and no
yep,
one's watching you.
yeah. I think it's so many things, you know, and I think for every one person, it's so very different. For me, I was so obsessed with the fear of weight gain. Like my truly, and it's so sad for me to like have this memory, but my biggest fear moving away to college, living outside of my home for the first time in my life was the freshman 15. My biggest fear. And so, because of that fear, I did not let myself go to the dining halls for like a month and a half. And finally, my roommate was like, I thought she was going to like tell on me or something. I was like kind of freaked out. because she said, like, you're weirding me out. You have to go to the dining halls. Like, you're being weird. Because I was just eating like snacky type foods. And so, yeah, my biggest fear in the dining hall was I wouldn't stop eating. And I didn't. That's when, seriously, like, that's when the binging just exploded. And every day was a nightmare. It was like opening the caged tiger.
Yeah, Pandora's box, right?
Uh huh.
I, uh,
Do you relate?
oh yeah, yeah, because it gets to the point of binging. You cannot stop. I call it like being the Tasmanian devil on crack. You have an
Yep.
out of body experience. You black out. It's
Yep.
like being
Yep.
drunk, high,
You're hijacked.
whatever you want to say.
Yep.
And
Totally. It's a
for 10
blackout.
minutes, half an hour, whatever your binge is, you have no
Yeah. No
recollection of
control.
what happened.
Yep. And it's like, how did I get here again? Like when you come to, and it's so terrifying.
Yeah. And then gotta go to the gym. Gotta go.
Yeah. Got to do the
Like, you
restriction.
gotta get rid of it somehow, whatever
Yep.
your vice.
And do the
Right?
planning. Yep.
Yeah. And then the spiral of guilt, shame, seven horsemen,
Oh,
come on down. Right?
all of it. Yeah. And I don't know about you, but for me, whenever I was in that place, which was a lot, like multiple times every week, you did not want to be around me. I was miserable. I was not nice. I like hated everything and everyone. And so I isolated a lot because I didn't want to be around people. They didn't want to be around me. So just so much of my life was like putting a mask on, faking it, acting like everything's fine. And yeah,
Yeah, no, I'm not a nice person on a good day, but like, put in the eating disorder, and
yeah.
I actually could do what you couldn't. So I was
Oh, right.
very, very, I got very sick. I was 84 pounds when I got diagnosed
Oh, wow.
at my
Yeah.
peak time, right?
I'm so glad you're okay. And I'm so glad you're better.
Yeah, well,
It's so
okay, it's kind
scary.
of like heavy.
Well,
Yeah, I've
I'm
met
so glad
you.
you're here today.
Yeah, no, I'm above ground, and I'm very, very, very grateful.
Yeah. Wow.
But, and I've got, every, everyone has stuff, right? And
For
everyone has a
sure.
story to tell, right? But
Yeah.
it, gosh, it's hard. So how did you get to the door of recovery?
It was long, let me tell you. So once I realized this is a problem, which was freshman year in college, do you say it like that?
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. Okay. Just making sure. Um, yeah, that's when I really realized, like, okay, you have a problem. Because I didn't think in high school like restriction was a problem. So I started kind of like, I really talked to like one friend about it, and she did the same thing I did. And I sought out like therapy and therapist, and I don't know. I'd never done that before, so I didn't really know how to navigate it. I saw a therapist or a counselor at the college I went to, Long Beach State, um, and I heard about this thing called Overeaters Anonymous. And I just remember my friend and I just hysterically laughing, like, "Oh my God, how embarrassing! Like, how could you even step foot in an Overeaters Anonymous meeting? Like, you admit that you like can't stop overeating." Well, I was there for 15 years, and so what ended up happening is, in all these years, I was just so desperate to get better. I wanted to be normal. I seriously probably saw 25 different therapists, and I'm not going to get into the stories because they're just horrid, horrid stories of like therapists. So you have to be so careful with who you choose to work with and really like do a good job of, kind of doing your research. But anyway, so yeah, so because I was so desperate, I really like did what I could. And so that was a 12-step program that was free and I had access to it. And I was like, I mean, that was my world. 3 meetings a week. I called my sponsor every day. And what I didn't know was that it was actually keeping me sick and sicker. So I finally got approved and to go into real eating disorder treatment because for many years I was not because I was not underweight. It's not like that anymore, thank goodness. Not all the time, I should say. So I finally get accepted into eating disorder recovery treatment, and it was like day 2. I realized, and I was in one of the groups, I don't remember, I think it was like an intuitive eating group, and there was something that I heard, I couldn't tell you what it was, but it clicked. And I realized, oh my God, for 15 years, I've been making this thing stronger, thinking I'm getting better, but like knowing I wasn't getting better, never understanding like why can't I get better? Because the 12-step program was all about restricting your binge foods. So staying in restriction, which just led me to then binge more. So anyways, yeah, so I finally got into real treatment, and that's when the seed was planted. I was not given enough time. Usually most people aren't. Um, so yeah, I mean, I wasn't recovered at all after treatment, but the seed was planted and I kind of like knew what I had to do. And it was still really hard for a while. And my biggest fear again was weight gain and letting go of that idea of control. And, you know, in intuitive eating, you have to give yourself full permission to eat everything. And if there's anything I could tell anyone right now, just do it. Just go all in now, because you're going to have to do it at some point. Do it now, get it over with, because it's only temporary, you know? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I'm sorry. I have full permission to eat everything my whole life, but like that time period that's like terrifying, that's temporary. And oftentimes you gain weight during that time period. So,
okay. So, I'm sorry about all your psychologist stuff. I understand. Yeah.
yeah.
It's unfortunate that,
Yeah.
you know, and I don't know how old you are and what time frame, but thank God some things have changed, and some people are a little bit more sympathetic to eating disorders, knowing now it's a mental health thing, not a food thing, right?
Right. Not a vanity thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, when you talk about intuitive eating and you're an intuitive eating coach, so intuitive eating, can you walk me through that? Because most people would say that are sick. No, I'm not sick, but I'm just saying, like, if I go back with my brain, I'd be like, well, that's just ludicrous. If you're going to give me permission to eat food, then I'm going to be on the next A&E 5,000-pound person, because that's where I'm going to end up.
Yes, that was my belief. And yes, because I was thinking that with a sick brain. Yeah.
So what is intuitive eating? Can you break
I'm so
that
glad
down?
you asked. Yes. So I actually just opened up the document because I came up with my own definition. So I'm going to read it for my document. Okay. So what is intuitive eating? Okay. So it brings together our gut feelings, emotions, and thinking patterns into a collaborative whole. You're the expert on your own body. Only you know your thoughts, feelings, and experiences. Only you know how hungry you are and what food or meal will satisfy you. So it's like having a team inside of us. We have our gut feeling teammate who helps us make quick decisions, our emotion teammate who tells us how we feel, and our thinking teammate who helps us make smart choices. When they work together as friends, we become really good at understanding ourselves and making the right decisions. Intuitive eating is a mindful and holistic approach to eating that encourages individuals to listen to their body's hunger and fullness cues rather than following strict diets or external rules. It's about reestablishing a healthy relationship with food, free from guilt or restrictions. In essence, it's all about eating based on your body's signals and nurturing a positive connection with food.
So how do we get there, though, to repair our relationship with food? Because I can just say my experience. No. Like, I couldn't sit at a table without having a panic attack. If it was Christmas or any big event and we were going to my parents, so all of us go there. The last thing I wanted to do was sit at that table. I would do dishes. I would clean the house. I would play with kids. I would shovel snow. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'd rather give birth to octuplets than at that table.
Yep.
And it's so hard, and I'm glad you're here, because when you say you're scared of food, people look at you like you got 12 heads. Right? Like,
and it's real.
And your family's looking at you going, you gotta eat. Right. I know.
Right.
Can't.
I know.
I physically can't do it.
Yeah.
How do we get to that spot where
yes,
we know food's not the enemy?
It's a great question. So it's very nuanced, and you have to seriously work with somebody who is a specialist, because when you have an active eating disorder, you are not going to be doing intuitive eating. That is very inappropriate. So you have to get to a certain level in your recovery where you can then implement intuitive eating. The first thing with, eating disorder recovery is, wherever the person's at, like making sure you're nourished if you're underweight, or even if you're not underweight, because there's atypical anorexia. So yeah, absolutely. The first piece is like getting food to be more normalized in oftentimes a setting that is very controlled, like treatment. Most people don't have that privilege. So yeah, I mean, I wish there was a way for people to like recover on their own with eating disorders. But I mean, yes, it's not like it's impossible. It's just really, really hard. But yeah, I mean, you have to get to a certain place in your recovery in order to implement intuitive eating. And when you first implement intuitive eating, where I start is, okay, we're starting with the food. So I want you to be eating all throughout the day. I want you to eat consistently, adequately, and appropriately. And most people are like, what does that even mean? So I'll say, all foods are open. Like you don't have to eat anything. You don't have to not eat anything. And you're going to have like 3 meals and 3 snacks a day, loosely. There's no rules, but like that's where I'll usually guide somebody to start. And we just kind of start there. So we have to start with the food piece because the number one reason why anyone is triggered to binge eat is because of a biological response to food restriction. And so that's kind of like, I don't want to say easy, the simplest way to like get it kind of going. And also you have to be nourished in order for your brain to properly work. Like you can't heal through a sick brain.
Yeah, that's the thing. Right?
Yeah.
I will say that. There is no talking to someone who's fully sick in
Yeah,
their head. Like, you're going to have a better conversation with a wall. But I
absolutely.
just want to backtrack a bit. She said
Yeah.
atypical anorexia.
Yes,
Can you just explain that for
absolutely.
people who don't?
So, as I'm sure most people know, anorexia is a restrictive, food disorder, and people are underweight, very malnourished. Atypical anorexia is somebody who lives in a bigger sized body and they are malnourished because they are doing the exact same thing as regular anorexics. So it's because as human beings, we all have different genetics and bodies. So I might start in a bigger body and maybe in a year I've been anorexic and I'm malnourished, but I'm still in a bigger body, even though I've lost weight. I can also be in a bigger body, be completely malnourished and restricting, just like a regular anorexic, and stay in this bigger body and not lose any weight. Like what we hear from diet culture, which is like A plus B equals C, like, you know, food intake and calories out, calories in, whatever equals weight loss. That's not always true. Like every body is so different. And I, yeah, I'm thinking about the women I've worked with that have atypical anorexia. And I mean, they're just so gaslit by doctors. And because what happens is they go to the doctor. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say, how frustrating is that? Like, you got
Oh,
everything that
yeah.
I got. You can tell I was sick, man. And blind men in Phoenix knew I was
Right.
sick, right?
Yeah.
And you don't have the physical appearance of something.
Yeah.
So now you got to go tell a doctor that you have anorexia. They're going to look at you like you got 12 heads,
Well,
right?
usually like the person, like the client or the patient wouldn't even know what that is. Oftentimes people like don't know what it is. They just know like I'm not eating and it's a secret and I don't want to tell anyone. They go to the doctor for something going on with their knee and the doctor says, "Okay, well you need to go on a diet and lose weight." And they're like, "But wait, you didn't even look at my knee." And so oftentimes then like maybe the next visit, and I'm saying this because these are stories I've heard with all the people I've worked with, my friends, family, whoever. So like maybe a month later, they go back in to check on the knee that was never even looked at initially. And the doc says, "Well, you didn't lose any weight. I don't understand. What are you doing?" And then the client patient says, I really like don't eat much, doc. Like I seriously eat an apple for breakfast and I exercise all day long. And then they just continue to prescribe the disordered behaviors because Western medicine is not up to par with eating disorders or mental health issues.
Right. Oh, God, so frustrating.
It's scary.
So yeah, because what else you want a person like? I want to put my head. I'll just be
I
honest.
know.
Like, I'm telling you what I'm doing,
I know.
not being heard, and especially like when you're in your ad, and I don't know about you, I always felt like I was the Charlie Brown teacher. Wah, wah, wah. Like, there's no one here what I'm saying. Wah,
Yep.
wah, wah, wah. Being dismissed.
Yep.
And when I was
Mm-hmm.
in the hospital, nurses used to be like, yeah, okay, crazy lady, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, I'm telling you
Yeah.
what is happening with me.
Yes.
And you're not listening to me. Yes, granted, I admit it. I got an eating disorder. I'm staying in this hospital for a while.
Right.
But I'm also, and I don't want to like sound like a jerk, I was in my 40s, right? I'm
Yeah.
turning 46 on Sunday.
Yeah.
I was there 2 years ago. So
Wow.
I wasn't 14 trying to tell
Right.
nurses, like, I got, man, like, I don't want to be in this hospital.
Oh man, I just got
Listen,
chills.
the English, right? Like,
No, really. Like I so feel this. Yeah, I'm like tearing up.
oh,
I'm
I'm
so sorry you
sorry.
had to experience that. No, I mean, it's so many people's experience. We're so, especially being female, just being gaslit by the dang doctors.
And it's not fair, like, at all. Especially when there's people who do want to get better.
Yeah.
But yeah, all that gaslighting is like, well, why the hell am I here? Why am I trying? It
Right.
actually does the opposite effect,
Right.
right? If you're not going to listen to me, I might as well keep doing what I'm doing,
Totally. And,
right?
and, and do it even more
Yeah, I'll show
because nobody
you.
believes me anyways. Yeah, I'll totally
Yeah,
show you. Maybe you'll believe me, but like, maybe you won't.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. No,
Another thing.
how?
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say frustrating.
So just another thing to add on to like everything that's going on right now with the doctors is like, oh my God, the weight loss medications. So like, I mean, and this is happening with so many of my clients, they're not in a thin body. They're in maybe a straight size body or a bigger body, and they are anorexic and they are telling their doctors, and they are not only been prescribed, disordered behaviors with food and diet and that, but they're then prescribed the weight loss medications. So
Isn't
like,
that amazing?
I,
Well, and you brought it up. Let's talk about it. So I have a lot of stuff to say
mm,
about that one. I'm not even
go.
going to
Yeah.
lie. I've tried it.
Yeah.
Not lately. It was like, my husband actually is diabetic, and we get the Canadian version. So, like, call it the welfare version. It's good, like, the big OZ,
Yeah.
right? But it didn't do anything for me. I wish it did, but it didn't.
Okay.
So I
That
was like, well, that's
happens.
a waste of money. But watching, and I'm big into reality shows. I watch all that crap. I love the housewives. I love that they're rich and they have problems, and somehow I'm supposed to care.
Yeah.
But all of them have not only new heads, they have new bodies.
Yep.
And it's, you're watching, I'm not against plastic surgery, man. If I had money, I'd have a new head.
Yeah.
But you're watching these people shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink. And I'm like, why is no one talking about this? This is the new eating disorder. If you're
I
taking
know.
medication not to eat food, coming from someone who had an eating disorder and a deadly one, and I'm the voice of reason, what the hell's wrong with this picture?
I know. I know. I just met a new friend 2 weeks ago, and they told me that they were on whatever one of those, semi-glutide meds. I don't know the name of it, whichever one it was, it doesn't matter, for a month. And I said, I'm sorry, I'm so confused. How did you get this? Because he is a thin man. And he said, I just asked for it. And I was
You
like,
got the
what?
money, I'll give it to you.
What?
Crazy. It's crazy.
It's irresponsible.
And I do know because someone in my family was on it here in Canada, had a bunch of medical issues, was in the hospital for 3 months,
Oh,
and they linked it to that. And I know that there's a class action lawsuit going on in now,
yeah.
right? And I know what happened to my body when I was
Yeah.
between blood work and everything else. When you're losing that much weight that fast, you can't tell me your potassium's not off,
Yeah.
your magnesium's not off, your kidneys
Hormones.
are not functioning at a regular level. Are
Yep.
they getting blood work? Are they being
Right.
monitored? Are you
Right.
not going to wake up one day?
Yeah.
Because I don't know how your body's different than mine.
I know. I know. I know.
I just feel like it's going to be I'd say 2 years from now, there's going to be like,
Oh, I've been saying that exact same thing. The lawsuits up
like
the,
there's going to have to
yeah,
be bigger treatment centers
yeah,
because now that is a whole new eating disorder. You're
totally.
taking an injectable. To
Yep.
me, it's no different than injecting a drug,
Well,
right?
because
Like
it
heroin,
is. Yeah.
right? Like, so you have another addiction.
Right.
That's an addiction.
Yeah. So here's what I foresee, and I guarantee you this is going to happen. So it's super big right now, right? Like so many people are taking it. And so my question whether it's my client who's going to take it, they are taking it or whatever, or a friend or anyone who's talking about it. Okay. Is this something you plan to take for the rest of your life? Okay. What if they are out of stock? What are you going to do? Okay. Oh, you don't plan to take it for the rest of your life. Okay. So what do you think is going to be different once you get off of it? Because here's what's going to happen. You are going to be the exact same person in brain when you first started the medication, but worse, because you were in a starvation period unintentionally because it was superficially like brought on. Yeah, I've seen so many people, like recovered people, fully recovered from their eating disorder, go on the medication for weight loss, be done with it, and then back in the eating disorder and have to kind of
Yep.
like do the whole thing over again.
These are people who are anorexic and they just don't know it,
Yeah.
right? The minute,
Yes.
the minute you stop taking this medication, what do you think is going to happen? Now, I'm not against people wanting to lose weight. I've come from a
Totally,
place
of
that I
course.
lost over 100 pounds totally safely. My eating disorder came from a workplace accident, whatever. Long, long. But the minute that you put a drop of water into you,
Yeah.
your body's going to hold on to that drop of water and you're going to gain 5 pounds.
Yep.
And then the minute you eat a yogurt,
Yep.
it's just going to go up and up and up. So now
Yes.
you're going to go the other way because you haven't learned how to deal
I
with
know.
the psychology around
Yes.
losing weight.
Right.
And now and I know what this is like. Like you have imposter syndrome. So you go from, let's just say you're a size 18.
Yeah.
Now you're a size 6.
Yeah.
In a very little time, your body goes faster than your brain.
Yep.
You don't even know where you belong. So you're still going to plus size clothing stores.
Uh-huh.
I did it.
Yep.
And you can't catch up,
Yeah.
but then you never want to go back. So then you want to keep this body at all costs, and it's going to cost your life.
I know. I know. And it's and it's all for like staying in that size. Because the concept of going back and being bigger, like how you were or how you think about it, is so much more terrifying than dying.
Yeah. No,
And
it's
that's a problem. That's
yep.
what I was. I prayed to get cancer because I thought if you have cancer, you're not going to eat. Like,
Yeah.
I was in high school, but
Yeah.
yeah,
No, I understand that, right? Like some people might say, "Oh, I can't believe you said." That. No, this is how
yeah, this is how
we
desperate we
think.
are. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
No, and
desperate.
it is. It's rather jump than go back to I was so miserable then. I'm not going back to being miserable, but hey, guess what? Being in anorexia land is not Disneyland,
No,
right? It's
right,
a whole new version of hell,
right.
right? Like that's
Yeah,
hell 2.0, I
yep.
call it, right? Like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
yep, you haven't seen hell yet.
Right.
Right?
Seriously. Yeah.
So it's just I don't know, like it just seems like gonna when it blows, it's gonna be
It's going to be so bad. But I also can't wait till we get there so we can just put an end to it. You know?
right.
It reminds me of almost exactly what happened with Purdue Pharma and Oxycontin. Like, I feel like we are in that now with different company, different medication, but like the same scenario.
So we had my birthday party on Saturday a week early.
Happy
Anyways, I
birthday.
have a friend here who thank you, who she's 69, and we were talking about all this, right? And she's like, you know what this is? It reminds me of fen.
Yeah.
And she took fen. She's
Yep.
like, that
So
was
did I.
amazing. I wish I had ordered that stuff. And I was like, what? I'm like, what the hell's fen? And then I remember a little bit like from like lawsuits and stuff. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think people drop dead off fen.
Yep.
The speed at the end of it,
Yep.
right?
Yeah. Yes. My mom had a stroke because of fen.
Oh, shit.
Yeah,
Yeah, well, there you go. So when the problem is, I think too with the big OZ is if you're heavy on this medication, they're just going to say all your problems are because you're heavy.
I know.
It has nothing to do.
With anything else, it's your fault. It's your fault.
Yeah.
It's your body. It's your fault. You
Oh
caused it.
man. Well, okay, so let's move on from
Okay.
that. Let's
Yeah.
say we're in recovery, we're doing great, we're gaining weight. 'Cause that's the point. It's great news to anybody, but you got to gain weight in recovery. And we have to go clothes shopping. This was a
Mm-hmm.
hard, like, this was hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
Hard, like, cried,
Yeah.
like, wouldn't even walk into a store.
Yeah.
How do we get around
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
to clothe our
Yeah. So there's so many different things that I'll suggest. I think, if it all depends on who you are, what's going on in your life. But like, if you're an adolescent, a teen, and you don't have to worry about, I don't know, maybe it's summertime. Seriously, just please be comfortable. Wear sweats all summer if you need to. Um, I think also going with someone that is trusted and knows what's going on and is going to support you through that is very helpful. So this is like what I've said to one of my teens, because we've, had this conversation many times throughout the few years that we've worked together when she goes clothes shopping. So she goes with a trusted person. She has the friend pick 3 sizes for each thing she wants to try on. Like, let's just say small, medium, large. She doesn't look at the sizes. The friend like hands her the things in the dressing room. She made a commitment to not look at the sizes, and she just buys what is the right size and then gets home and mom takes the tags out.
oh smart.
Yeah. And at some point, because that's not necessarily like the way somebody wants to live, like having to avoid all triggers, but temporarily, yeah, I'd say do that if that's going to help. And at some point, let's introduce like, maybe let's look at the size, maybe you get to look at the size today and we get to walk through that. Another thing is I have a really good, like resources, Google Doc, and on there's health at every size clothing options. So for people living in a bigger body, different clothing option sizes. But yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky.
It's like I will say the number's never as bad as you think it's going to be, um, in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard. It's hard to go from wearing a certain size to wearing a size that you tried your best to run from.
Yeah, I know.
Sometimes you have to go up higher than that.
Yeah,
And it's really hard. So how do we stay on the positivity train? Because I was like, this is bullshit.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
This is yeah.
I'm going to jump off the train. This sucks.
Yeah. So here's what I would say. Like, we focus on everything other than weight loss and body size markers. So we don't get on the scale. We avoid mirrors. We're not going to body check. And you know how we're so conditioned to like, think that we're doing well when we are like losing weight, right? We're so conditioned to the number on the scale, the measurement, the whatever. So instead of like those things being our markers for things getting better and making progress, what I'll say is like, I do a lot of like, different types of journals with my clients, and like, I will, like get a jar or a journal or whatever. And every single time you do something positive for yourself, for recovery, for self-care, anything, you're going to mark it. You're going to put it in the jar, put it on a paper in the jar, or like write it down. And that's how we get to measure your success and your progress. And that's what we focus on. Because I don't know about you, but even like when I was really sick and struggling, when I was like, there was always, it wasn't like for 20 years I was just constantly in the eating disorder. I'd go through periods like a week would be okay, and then it'd be a month of hell, and then maybe a month would be okay. Not perfect by any means, but what I realized was, as long as I'm treating myself with respect and care and not engaging in the disordered behaviors, regardless of the size, I knew I always felt better. Did I say that like in a way that makes sense.
No, I
Okay.
understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
No, non-scale victories
yeah.
and taking care of your mental health. Again,
Yeah.
going back to the root of XYZ, right?
Yeah.
Why am I here? What do I need to get my brain
Mm-hmm.
focused or back in reality?
Mm-hmm.
Back to planet Earth, right?
Right.
And that's hard when you're battling, I call them slick or eating disorder, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
one side of my brain was always, or shoulder even, devil
Yep.
split. Come on, Heather, you got to eat. And I'm all about it, all about it. And then you go and do it. And then it's like,
Don't do it.
you feel like shit because
Yeah.
you haven't eaten in, I don't know, depending on how long it's been,
Yeah.
right? It's a while for me. So now your stomach hurts, you're tired, you have all the guilt chain, seven horsemen come on down. And you start spiraling.
Mm-hmm.
How do we get them to shut up?
Yeah. So a huge part of what I do with my clients and intervention I use is this like brain activity. It's so when I work with my clients, it's a brain retraining. And so I have this one very simple, just verbal exercise that it's like all we talk about all day long. Like, did you call out your chatter? Did you call out your chatter? So it's basically just a verbal exercise that you say out loud. And in this exercise, you're having a dialogue with the two sides, your higher brain and your lower brain, because the lower brain is the chatter, is the ed voice. You called it slick,
Yeah.
which is awesome. And so, yeah, you're just having a dialogue and you're asking yourself, what does chatter suggest, which is never going to serve you? What does your higher brain suggest, which is always going to serve you? But you get to decide which one you go with, which one, because you're allowed. But when you make the decision from your higher brain, when you're conscious about it, it changes the interaction. So then next time you do it, that like tie is going to be a little bit less strong.
Oh, that is $1 million answer. Honestly. Oh, that. So the answer is no. Just gonna lay in bed and cry. That's all I did.
Right.
I just bawled.
Yeah.
God, it was awful. I cried a lot.
Oh, yeah. And I have, I'm all about phrases. So we always talk about the phrases like, one of my favorite ones is like, we don't do that anymore. And you say that to yourself, like, if you notice yourself body checking, like, and then you come to, and it's like, nope, Libby, we don't do that anymore.
I love it. Yeah, because you got to snap yourself out of it.
Totally.
It's so easy to go back,
Yep.
right? It's like being drowning mad
Yeah.
at the end of the day. It's easy to get pulled under,
Yeah.
right? So can we talk about, and this is a little bit of a hot topic, exercise and recovery. I've talked to people, they're like, never again, no. And then there's people like me, who I'm like, but I can't. Me lying in bed when I went and did my recovery on my own, I went into a bedroom, hired Hughes, shut the door, and stayed there. In school,
Oh my God.
I ate in that bedroom alone, slept in that bedroom, I cried in that bedroom,
kidding?
did it all on my own.
In your 40s, you did
And,
this?
sorry?
You were 40 when this happened?
I started recovery December 30th, 2022. When I came out of the hospital, it didn't work. So let's say January of 2023. I went in the bedroom, shut the door. It's like old school recovery, right?
It's like
really,
being in a padded room. That's what I used to think. Like, I just need to be in a padded room. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I did it all on my own.
Wow. Wow.
What better in the hospital?
And isn't that so sad and unfortunate?
Then I'm here. So now I get to
And now you're here.
Right? I gotta I always say, find the funny in the fucked up.
Oh, totally. We have to have
right?
funny.
Because we're all living fucked up, my friends.
Yes,
you gotta find the funny.
We have to have humor. Yes.
And this is just another page in the book ahead of us, right? People have lived through way worse than me, right?
Yep.
And every day, my husband had a printing company, so this is how I got my shirt. This is when the shirt he brought to me while I was in the hospital. 1% better every day.
That's how.
So this is from 2022.
Wow.
Not realizing 2024 I'd have a podcast called.
I just got chills. That's so cool.
So I do believe in a higher power. I do believe in the universe. I believe in anyone who believes in me at this point.
Yeah.
But I gotta have one of those, there's got to be better. Like, there's got to be something more,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a reason for everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why I'm here crying.
Yeah.
There's a reason why I'm being pissed. There's a
Mm-hmm.
reason why.
I agree.
One day, hopefully, I'll understand what that is.
Well, you know what? Look what you're doing now. No, seriously, Heather, like, you're doing such a service to humankind. No, really. Like, you're talking about it. We're talking about the hard things, you know?
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I think it's a big deal what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. And, in secret to tell, and no one's ever alone.
We're only as sick as our
No one's
secrets.
ever
Yeah.
alone. So I just laugh.
Yeah.
Right? So, sorry. So exercise and recovery.
Yeah.
Is it?
Well,
where do you stand on? Oh, yeah, because that's what I was saying. I need to go for a walk. I need to
yes.
do Pilates. I need to do wall Pilates.
Yeah.
I don't need to run on treadmill like a gerbil. I don't want to do that particularly.
Yeah.
But I like
so
moving, dancing.
Yeah, I think my answer is nuanced because there's so many intricacies in all of it, of course, like everything. But the way I work with people now is a very distant way. So I'm virtual only. I don't see you in person. I don't necessarily need you to have a medical doctor on your team right now unless I see certain things. So I'm not going to be the person that's going to tell you you can or can't exercise. I will talk about it with you, pick up on behaviors and whatnot. And if you're somebody that want to exercise, we talk about that too. If you are scared that you're like over exercising, we talk about that. But when I worked in clinics and treatment teams and treatment centers, you have a whole team and a staff. And I do understand when somebody is significantly underweight and maybe has osteoporosis. Like, if you fall, you might not come back.
Right.
Like, your bones may never repair themselves. So, like, yes, I do think there's a time and place for like abstinence with exercise. But I think, okay, then stretch, do yoga. Like, you can still do something like stretch, I'm all about like, let's just be gentle. Like, you don't have to go to the gym. Like, be in nature, go on a walk, skip around, like do jumping jacks, whatever it is, dance around to music in your house.
Find your
thing.
Right. I interviewed a girl named Lauren, and she found yoga, and I almost like fell off my chair in a treatment center. I'm like, they let you do yoga?
Yeah. They usually bring in a yoga
God.
therapist once a week.
Oh, I get into that.
Yeah, well, your treatment sucked, but yeah.
Yeah, it did. But the hard school of Heather went pretty well. So I could talk to you forever, but I know you are a busy, busy lady. I hope you can come back because I have so many more questions I didn't even get to.
Yeah.
Where do we find you? Tell us all.
Okay, cool. So the most exciting thing is I have a free training, and I'll give it to you in the show notes. But on my social media handles, so like TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Food Freedom with Libby, Food Freedom with Libby, and yeah, Instagram, TikTok is mostly where I'm at. And then, yeah, you'll have my like email, website, all those links and whatever you can put in the show notes. But yeah, just Food Freedom with Libby, and I'm pretty active in social media land.
Yeah, you are, because that's where I found you on my Talkie, because I followed you.
Wait, so we found each other on TikTok, not the group on Facebook?
No, TikTok. I followed you. I'm one of your followers.
Oh my gosh,
when I was going through recovery.
Thank you for telling me that.
So then I got the urge one day to ask if you'd come on. Because I have two accounts. I have Heather Recovers, and then I have the 1% Better. My Heather Recovers has journaled since day one.
Okay.
When I started my recovery.
Wow.
But I always ask people through the podcast.
I'm so glad to hear that. And I would love to come back on. Seriously.
Oh, I could talk to you for...
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it. We have no summer plans. You're going to hang out with a Canadian.
I'm just working, so...
Oh, no, there's just that, right?
Yeah.
Nothing better. Well, I can't thank you enough, my friend. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Heather. This was really awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.